All right, I think we got there and I think we're getting started. Again, thanks for spending a little bit of time with us this evening. My name is Clay Adams. I serve as an Assistant Vice President in Student Affairs. I'm located in the Dean of Students office and I've worked in student life for about 22 years at Duke University. Congratulations. We're thrilled that you're with us here this evening. We're thrilled for your family. Of course, we're thrilled for your students. We're going to spend a little bit of time this evening just to answer questions that you might have of how we do student support and what that looks like here at Duke. The webinar is being recorded, so it can be viewed later. We recognize that we might not get to everybody's questions in the hour that we have, but we're thrilled to jump into it. So before we get started with the Q&A planned portion, I want my colleagues to have the opportunity to introduce themselves. First, Carrie Williams. She is a Duke graduate and is a double Dookie of sorts with two children.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be with you all tonight. And I just want to echo what Clay said about congratulations. I remember being in this position with my own students, and so I just feel excited for all of you. I graduated from Duke in 1996, so I just had the joy of celebrating my 30th Duke reunion over the weekend and reconnecting with friends, so that was great. I'm also the parent of two Duke students, one current Duke freshman, Lily, and one student who graduated from Duke in 2025, Sarah. And so I'm happy to share anything about my own girls' experiences at Duke this evening, but they both just have had a positive experience at Duke. My older daughter majored in psychology and also earned a certificate in child policy research. Both my girls have been part of the Focus freshman seminar program. My older daughter did Duke Engage in Boston and study abroad in Spain. Both girls tented for basketball, which would be fun to talk about. You know, they've been just involved in Duke in a lot of ways and had great experiences with Duke faculty. So I'm happy to share any of that this evening.
Thanks so much, Carrie. Really appreciate that. Next is Penny Fleming. She wears a myriad of hats, including having two Duke students who went through undergraduate and graduate school here. I will let her introduce herself and share anything that she would like from her myriad of hats that she wears.
Hi, welcome and congratulations. What an exciting time for you and your families. And I hope that this webinar and the other information that's been provided for those who haven't made a decision yet, I hope that these information sessions will help you and that if you are able, you've registered for Blue Devil Days. As Clay said, I have two students who went to Duke quite a while ago. My son graduated in 2009 and 2010 with a bachelor's and master's, and my daughter in 2012 and 2013 with a bachelor's and master's. Both were in the Pratt School of Engineering, so I'm happy to talk about that. I know it's a much smaller group of students and families, but I have a lot of information I could share if you're interested in knowing about that. I also, for those of you who are on our Duke Parent Facebook page, I also manage that Facebook page for the class of 2030, as well as 29, 28, 27, and 26. And we provide a lot of information. So even if you're not Facebook users, and I'm not really, except for these Facebook pages, I would encourage you to consider joining, if nothing else, just to get the information from the Facebook pages. And as we go along, I'd be happy to share about my son and daughter's experiences at Duke and also about what Duke doesn't end when you graduate from Duke. And so to talk also about their experiences being out of Duke now for many, many years and having gone through career changes as well that have been supported by Duke in a variety of ways.
Thanks so much, Penny. Really appreciate that. Penny is a wealth of information and a heck of a resource. It's been a great partnership with our office in the Dean of Students office for many, many years and across the university. Dalton is our representative from the New Student and Family Programs office. He serves as an associate director there. And Dalton, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Clay. As Clay mentioned, my name is Dalton Dye. I use he and pronouns, and I'm one of the associate directors within the New Student and Family Programs office. Our office and in my role here, you and your student will hear a lot from us over the summer as well as throughout their time on campus. We do a lot of the onboarding and orientation throughout the summer. We do experiential orientation in the fall, and then Family Weekend is our big event that happens every fall as well. But you'll hear a lot from us after you accept your spots throughout the school year, monthly webinars and newsletters, keeping you connected to campus. We're also a pretty good resource if you have a question about anything, but don't know exactly who to go for or who to talk to. Giving us a call is a great way for us to point you in the right direction and get you connected to the people you need to know. So thank you all for being here. I'm excited to hear what questions you have and what support we can provide as you all are making a very tough but important decision as a family.
I love it. And there's one additional person who is with our team today. He is off camera. That is Bucky Holmes. But if you see him answering your questions behind the scenes, he is a part of our group. We're thrilled that he is joining us here this evening. Again, I'm your moderator. So I'm going to go ahead and just jump into it. We have about 30 questions or not 30 questions, 30 minutes of questions that we've prepared for our colleagues here that are our panelists. Then we're going to open up to Q&A from you. We're going to try to answer as many of the questions as we can, and then we'll close it out with a few next steps. So with that being stated, the first one is for you, Carrie. As a mom of Duke students, what gave you the confidence that Duke was the right place for them?
Well, I think, first of all, Duke does such a great job with Blue Devil Days, both in person and virtually. So when my older daughter was admitted, we did all the programs. She did all of the virtual events for students, and then I tuned into as many of the parent programs as I could. And I just kept hearing certain words over and over again. Words like community and spirit and collaboration and camaraderie and engagement. I heard them from all different people, faculty, students, administrators, staff, all describing Duke in the same way. And that had been my experience as a student years ago. And so I felt, I don't know, I felt like the picture was coming together for my daughter as well. And then I think it was maybe in a Zoom with the now Dean of Trinity, Gary Bennett. I think it was him who said to a parent group of admitted students that there are adults at Duke who will care deeply for your children. And I think that really resonated with me, that I was sending my oldest child off to college, not just to take a bunch of classes and get a degree, but to have this experience as a whole person where a Duke administrator was looking me in the eye and telling me there are adults at Duke who will care deeply for your child. And that has been my experience as a parent now of two students. And there are just countless examples of that being true. And so just as a mom, I feel good that my kids are successful academically at Duke, but just really cared for as people. I feel like they're safe, and yeah, Duke has their back.
I appreciate that. And you answered what one of my follow-up questions was going to be. So I won't go there.
Okay.
But Carrie, what's a resource that really surprised you that Duke offers to their students?
There are so many. One thing I appreciate, and I hope at some point this evening on this Zoom that we get the chance to talk about the move-in process, because from the moment you and your children step foot or pull your car up outside of the Duke freshman dorm, it's just like spectacular. I can't say enough about that process. But one thing I like that Duke does for students is, students come to campus, they have orientation, and it takes a minute for our students to get settled and to figure out what's what. And so I like that Duke has this sort of slow rollout of resources over social media, over Instagram, in students' email. It's like Duke knows that students can't absorb every resource on day one. And so there's this nice slow rollout of things. But I think one thing that pleasantly surprised me as a parent, is what the Duke Wellness Center does. So not only is it this really beautiful facility on West Campus near the Bryan Center Student Union, so I hope if you're on campus for Blue Devil Days, you'll check it out. But the Wellness Center just has great programs that prioritize students' mental health and well-being. And so you know that your students are some of the best in the world and they're very strong academically and they will come to Duke and succeed, but there are times where it will be stressful and it will be overwhelming. And so I love the resources that the Wellness Center provides. And I think it was during my first parents' weekend when my older daughter was a freshman, I did a seminar for parents through the Do Well program at the Wellness Center. And I learned about yoga classes for students and the Koru drum circles for students and all kinds of stress management and stress relief. And within the Wellness Center is a room called the Oasis that has kits where students can step up and like make their own aromatherapy to take back to their dorm rooms. They can use the massage chairs to just, I don't know, put their AirPods in and listen to music and relax for 15 or 20 minutes. So I think Duke does a lot of things well, but the resource that surprised me most was just the intentional focus on wellness.
I love that. And I appreciate the plug for the student wellness building. That is where my office is, and our Dean of Students Office Leadership Suite is there. So if you're joining us for Blue Devil Days, the door is open. Come on in. We'd love to greet you and talk a little bit more about the services that we provide in that space. Really, same question for you. You also had two students that went through Duke many years ago, but you've stayed very connected to the university. And tell us a little bit about from your perspective. Is there anything else you would like to add?
I think one of the very underutilized resources that I hear about indirectly when parents are asking me questions on the parent Facebook pages, and I talk about all of these resources, and a lot of times the students haven't necessarily taken advantage of them, is the Career Center. And the Career Center is not just there to help them put a resume together to go get an internship. It is a very holistic approach, starting from their first year, where they can do a lot of self-assessments. It's all on the Career Center website, self-assessments to kind of figure out what their interests are and what their strengths are and what they might want to pursue, helping them to the point of trying to figure out possible majors. So it's not just the place to go when you need to find a job. There are all of those resources at the Career Center, but it really starts early on. And I think a lot of parents and first year students don't think about the importance of going to the Career Center as a first year student. But it's a really important place, and students can learn a lot about themselves and help begin their journey at Duke. So that's one thing I would say that is an important resource. Then looking at it, and you're probably not thinking this far out, but as I had mentioned, my adult children have been out of Duke for quite a long time and have changed careers. And one of the things is that Duke does not end when they graduate. The network, the alumni network at Duke is so strong and much stronger than I think you'll find at most any other university. And there's help individually, there's help, there are resources that students can come or alums can come back to at Duke. But a lot of especially my son's switching careers even and fields was supported by different alumni contacts, and not even necessarily people he knew, but Duke alums are always there to help Duke students and love to help Duke students. And we have a couple of different features or programs that allow students to connect with alums while they're students. There's Ask a Blue Devil, where students can put a question into this website, and through algorithms, they'll get matched with an alum who will provide an answer, and sometimes it even starts a connection. And then there's a bridge program where undergraduate students can actually get matched with an alum. And I've talked to students who have had great experiences in the people with whom they've been matched. So I think that it's not just when you come to Duke, it's not just Duke and the university, but it's all of Duke for the rest of your life. And I think that's something that people don't think about, but is such a great aspect of what Duke offers that a lot of other universities don't.
I love that. I appreciate that, Penny. Next is a follow-up question for you. I'd love to hear you share a little bit more about the parent Facebook page and how that serves as a resource to the parents.
Fantastic. As I said, I hope that you will join even if you're not a Facebook user. It serves multiple purposes. One, it helps you, parents, to have a Duke community because you'll have other parents and there's a lot of commiserating that can go on at various times, especially you should see that Facebook page after the goodbyes happen at move-in and parents are driving home on Sunday and going back to their home and how difficult it is for them and all the parents start chiming in and sharing and you have that instant community. And so you're part of the Duke family too, parents, and the Facebook page helps to facilitate that community for Duke parents. Then you can ask questions, any question, and if I don't have the answer, I call Clay. Not always, but yeah, I know where to get the answers if I don't have them, but I've been around for a long time and most of them I can answer, but not all of them. So it's a place for you to post your questions also. And just before we got on this webinar, I looked and I had 2 private messages from parents, and I'm happy for people to reach out to me through the direct message, private messaging, if you have a question that is more private and you want to handle it that way. And then finally, we'll post a whole bunch of information as you go through your 4 years at Duke. And the Facebook page exists for all 4 years. And the conversation is different as your student goes through those 4 years. Of course, the summer is all about move in and packing, and we provide packing lists and we explain about moving and how to ship and where you can buy things in Durham if you're coming from afar and don't want to ship a bunch of packages, but what stores have what things. Our junior year is now busy with all the students who are going to be going abroad in the fall. And so parents are even connecting. My son's going to Spain, where, anybody else have kids going to Madrid, and then they form a little group on the Facebook page. So it's an information sharing, and it's also a community for you as Duke parents, a virtual community for you. So please do join. Dalton, can you put or has the
Yes, I
link got
just,
in? Awesome. Thank you
yep.
so much. Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotcha, Penny.
Well, I
Clay,
did
did
see a
I
live
forget
question.
anything?
No, you're good. I did see a live question that came in, and before I pivot and ask Dalton a few questions, I just think it's great. It's a great timing to ask this one, which is if your, adult student had to choose again, would they still pick Duke and why? And I know, Carrie, that's a little bit unfair. You have one graduate, one who's in the first year, I think, but Penny, you had 2 graduates. What are your thoughts on that?
You ask me. Would they? I think absolutely they would have chosen Duke. As I said, they've gotten so much out of it, even beyond their 4 years, which is important. And they've also given back. My daughter a little bit more easily because she stayed in Durham after she graduated. And there are not a whole lot of female students in Pratt. And so she's been on the Pratt Alumni Engineering Council and every year mentors a few female Pratt students to share that perspective. But they both had fantastic experiences and still feel a very strong tie to Duke. My son's in Atlanta, but he's still involved with Duke in Atlanta, and we'll still try and get back here for games and things. But yeah, I don't think there's any question but that they would have chosen Duke again.
Great. What about you, Carrie?
I agree. My girls would choose it again. My older daughter is a first year grad student getting her PhD up in New England now. And last night got great news about a National Science Foundation fellowship that she won. And the first people that she was texting were her Duke roommates, her Duke faculty mentor, research mentor at Duke, her favorite psychology professors. It was late last night and she was sending me screenshots of their congratulations. And it just, I don't know, it just felt so special that she's moved on, she's graduated, she's on to the next thing, and her Duke friends and Duke faculty were still the first to be cheering her on. And I think she will credit her success in life largely to Duke, regardless of what else she goes on to do. I mean, kids at Duke joke about the Duke difference, sometimes in a way that's a little bit snarky and overly confident. But yes, both my girls say anytime anything great happens that they credit to Duke, well, Duke difference. And I agree, Duke does things in a really special way. So they would choose it again for sure.
That's awesome. And thanks for that story. That's so exciting for her and for y'all. Dalton, can you share more about the resources Duke offers to support?
Yeah, thanks, Clay. So as I kind of mentioned in my introduction, our office is sort of the point of the spear when it comes to offering resources to support families. Throughout the school year, we send out monthly newsletters, monthly webinars, and try and provide snapshots of what is happening on campus. I think in my few years being at Duke and many more working in higher education, students don't always communicate the best with parents, or maybe not to the level degree that parents or family members would prefer. So we try and bridge that gap a little bit with providing high-level snapshots of what's going on campus, important dates and milestones that maybe you can help reiterate to your students. I think right now, move out is a perfect example of when do you have to be out of the dorms? Have you started making a plan for packing? Like those types of things. I think the other thing that I would talk about specifically for this group on the call is the summer orientation experience. So throughout the summer, we do a little bit more elevated outreach with weekly webinars and some more regular newsletters. Those will start in the middle of June and run through July and into August. So you haven't missed anything yet, but our work there really is to share all the important things that your student needs to know as the summer progresses. And again, provide some of those insights of what you can help your student figure out in the decisions that they have to make and the pressure points that they have. I think Penny mentioned the Facebook group, which is again is a great resource for students and for parents and families as well. I think the one I'll also throw out there is that, like I said, our office is open all year round, and you are welcome to call and email us at any point in time. The amount of times that we get a phone call from somebody who says, I have a question about blank and I don't really know where to go with it, happens daily. And so that's a lot of our responsibility there, as well as sort of fielding those requests and saying, great question, I don't have that answer, but this is the person who we need to talk to who will, and sort of redirecting that way. So we are also a great resource just for those one-off general questions.
I appreciate that. Dalton, if I'm a parent who's trying to find resources for my student, where would you send them? Where should we go?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mentioned the newsletters that we'll send out. Like that's again a pretty regular one. I also know that we record all of our webinars over the summer and post those on our own YouTube page. So I know that parents and family members are coming from all over the world and different time zones and work schedules. And so while they are hosted live, they are viewable and recordable at any time. So I guess if you really felt so led to start reviewing last year's summer content, you could do so. I would maybe put the brakes on a little bit because things change year over year, and we'll be hosting a lot more this upcoming summer. But I think that's a really great one. Our Student Affairs website is also pretty robust, and so if you just get to Google Duke Student Affairs, that website sort of hosts links to every office and department that is housed in Student Affairs, and that's a really great place to sort of field out what specific question you're looking for, because it is a whole team, right? Like the Student Affairs umbrella encompasses a lot of offices that touch a lot of different parts of the student experience, and so depends a little bit on what you're specifically asking for. That's always a great place to start. And I think kind of similar to that, social media is a great one. Again, I keep coming back to the Facebook group is a good resource, but even individual departments and offices have Instagram pages that are pretty robust as well. So if you are on social media, there's a couple platforms there that I would encourage you to look at and just see what information and content exists online.
And Dalton, is there any additional information for parents and families tonight that you would like to share about the fall semester, dates, events, key things that are coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I can talk about that too. I do know there's a couple questions in the chat around what do I need to do right now and when are deadlines? I would just like to reiterate right now, the only decision and deadline you have to worry about is accepting Duke or not. You aren't going to be behind on anything else. Our office won't start communicating with students until after the admissions deadline has passed. and we have the entire finalized class when we start communicating out. So whatever deadlines that you are seeing and hearing, you haven't missed anything. And like I said, that's the big deadline. So take time to make that decision. Enjoy the last couple of months of high school with your student. Like that's all really great stuff. I think, oh yeah, I did pull up a little graphic here. I'll share my screen just so you can see it. It's great to take some photos if you are interested in that. I think this should pop up right here. But this is sort of like our big timeline running through the summer here. So obviously April, the Facebook page is live. You have access to it. Blue Devil Days are going on these upcoming weeks. May, and I can talk about this a little bit more, but Blue Book and our weekly student emails will start getting sent out. Our webinars begin, family programs. We start sending our emails to parents and families. June and July within academic advising and course registration, some of those parent family webinars again. And then August, these are the ones that I think are actually some specific dates. So if you are considering accepting to do or already have, put these in your calendar. These are set. They aren't going to change. Move-in day for first-year students is Saturday the 15th. Orientation starts Sunday morning, the 16th. So when you are planning out your travel, we really strongly encourage you to help move in and then head home in the nicest possible way. We want you to be there, but your student schedules are going to be very booked starting on Sunday. And so there's just a lot for them to manage and balance between family and then their actual commitments during orientation week. So I'll throw that one out there for some travel dates going to and from. Once orientation week ends on that Friday the 21st, there's some other big events happening that weekend, including a new student convocation, and then classes start on the 24th, which is Monday, August 24th. After that, we do welcome weeks throughout the first 6 weeks of the semester, which also runs us right into fall break. This year, fall break is going to be the 10th through the 13th of October. And then I mentioned this at some point, but we do have our family weekend, which is a big annual event where all parents and families are welcome back to campus, connect with students, and learn a little bit more about what is being offered at the university. This year, those dates are the 16th through the 18th. I'm sure some of you are looking at it and saying, that is so close to fall break. What in the world are you doing? And I will say two things. One, we usually pick that date in regards to one of the football games that happen in the fall. It's usually one of the highlights of the weekend. And the other one I'll throw out there is that what your student does for fall break might not be going home. For some of you will be. Others are going to be staying on campus. They're going to be doing other things with their friends and peers. And so having them back to back is a chance for you to still connect with your students on campus. And if they do go home for fall break, then I guess you get 2 weekends in a row to spend with your students, which I'm sure many would appreciate. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we're working with here throughout the summer and the fall semester. Yeah, I think that's what I got. So I'll stop sharing my screen so you can go back to seeing everybody full size.
Yeah, that's great, Dalton. Thank you so much for pulling that up. But this is a question round robin for anybody that's here as a panelist. But one of the great benefits of Duke is where we are located. We are located in the triangle of North Carolina. You'll hear people call it the Triangle, which is short for the Triangle Research Park. It's located in Durham. Tell us a little bit or share what your experience has been like with Durham and how that is a value add to the Duke experience.
I am happy to start. I live here in Durham, I'm in Chapel Hill, but Durham County, so kind of on one side of Durham. And I've gotten to know the downtown area a lot better having kids at Duke. So at Duke, all first-year students live on the east part of campus, which is adjacent to downtown Durham. So it's really walkable for our students. So just spending time with my kids at Duke, I've checked out some really great Durham restaurants, some of which are owned by Duke alumni or Duke parents. Durham has a great weekend farmers market scene that students love, that I've loved checking out with my kids. If your kids like thrifting, then they will love hearing that Duke attracts some really cool, like pop-up vintage clothing markets that I know students love to go to. So just the downtown Durham area has changed a lot since I was a student at Duke 30 years ago. I feel like at that time, students, I don't know, most of their social activity was on campus. And now Durham just feels like this great city with so much to explore. Restaurants, farmers markets. We also are home to the Durham Performing Arts Center that brings great shows and concerts to the area. We have the Durham Bulls minor league baseball team. Students love to go to baseball games. Their season just opened. So there's a lot to do in downtown Durham. And I love that, especially for our first year students, it's walkable.
I'll add, I moved to Durham from the Washington, D.C. area where I spent my entire adult life from the time I went to graduate school until I retired from the federal government and moved to Durham. And what I say to people is Durham has everything that sort of the Washington metropolitan area has, only on a smaller scale. And in addition to that, it's community. There's no place I can go, whether it's the grocery store or the library or the Durham Performing Arts Center or Costco, that I don't bump into somebody who I know. And Carrie mentioned the farmers market, which is terrific. I actually there was a question on the Facebook page today that I just answered. Somebody asked about, and I think they were talking about, where is the college town part of Durham, sort of. And I suggested, well, first of all, 9th Street, which is 2 blocks from East Campus, that downtown Durham is walking distance. The American Tobacco campus, I just love. There's a beautiful outdoor area. They have this like water feature going through it that is just lovely. And as you walk there, you're walking through Brightleaf Square. And both of those locations, they have repurposed the old tobacco warehouses and their restaurants and their stores. And it's just such a great feeling. I love living in Durham.
I love that. Dalton, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think at least on campus, I think that since my time has been here, there's been a pretty concerted effort from Duke students and staff to get off campus and explore the Durham area. Penny mentioned the Brightleaf area. When I first moved to Durham, that is where I lived and had a great time living downtown and being within walking distance to campus and other things to do. I really like Durham a whole lot. It is a cool city with a lot of charm, a lot of unique features. And so I think that as far as like places to live, I would recommend it highly. Obviously, a little biased here, but I've had a great time living in Durham. I think your students, to what extent they're comfortable, would love to get off campus. And I think maybe to get ahead of another question around bringing a car to campus is very contextual based on your particular students' needs. I hear all the time from students who don't bring cars and still find ways to get off campus and get around. And so it's one less hassle, one less stress to worry about, because Duke does have everything that you need to live a happy, full, content life. And there's plenty of ways to get off campus without it.
One of the other things I should mention, we talked about everything right near campus, but the Eno River, there are some fabulous parks and hiking areas, and the Eno River, you can go tubing in the river there, and that's another place that students really enjoy going to. There's so much great outdoor space that's not that far from campus, where students can get away and just be out in nature and sort of away from everything, which is sometimes really nice and refreshing for them.
I love that. I'm going to add just a little bit of commentary here because it is adjacent to some of the questions that are coming up about internships and jobs and things of that nature. When I came to Duke 22 years ago, when we looked and tracked undergraduate students who were leaving upon graduation and where they were going to reside for employment upon graduation, Durham and the Triangle wasn't in the top 50 locations that our students would go. Now that number is typically around 6 or 7. And I think that just highlights, the value that our students have placed on this. And, whether or not it's the startup opportunities, the entrepreneurial, innovative environment, or just the amount of Fortune 50 companies that we have that have either put in branch offices or expanded or grew up here in the Research Triangle Park. It's pretty incredible. And so it's just something to highlight. I'm going to ask one final question to the panelists, and then we're just going to open it up to your Q&A. I think this one's important because I'm going to frame this as a wellness-related question. And that was a question of what is the classroom environment like for our students? And the term that was used is it, quote, cutthroat? So what are your perspectives or thoughts? What do you hear from students?
If I could, I would love to share an experience that my daughter had. And she was in engineering, which, is a tech field that some would think are a little bit more cutthroat. She was a cheerleader when she was here at Duke, and she was an engineering student, and she cheered 2010 when Duke won the national championship. And it meant the month of March, as an engineering student with all those labs and everything else, she was on campus 3 days. The rest of the time she was traveling with the men's basketball team for their run to the NCAA championship. One of the things I would say for Pratt students is in order to get through, you need to go to office hours early and often as a Pratt student. It's the only way to get through. So while she was on the road, and this was back in 2010, so we didn't do Zoom and all of that. I guess she Skyped. I don't know what she did, but every time her friends went to office hours, they would get together with her while she was on the road, go over everything that they learned and got out of office hours so that she could do her problem sets and turn them in. When they had group projects to do, which there's a lot of in engineering, they always figured something out so that she could participate in a way that she could work on things when she was on the road to contribute. When she got back to campus those 3 days and had to go into the lab to do whatever, some of her friends went to the lab with her to show her what she needed to do and how she had to do it. To me, that's just a perfect example of no, Duke is not cutthroat. Students are very collaborative and supportive of each other. And she would not have been able to get through that month. And I'm not trying to brag, but she did graduate in the top 10% of her class in Pratt. And I think that a lot of that was due to the collaborative experience.
I appreciate that. Others?
That's a great story, Penny. I love that. And I agree. I would say that if I could choose just one word to describe Duke, if I were limited to one, I do think I would say collaborative. Your students have worked hard to get to this point, being admitted to Duke, and they are the kind of students who are going to continue to push themselves academically. And I guess I would say I feel like students at Duke continue to be really high achieving in the midst of their collaboration, but it almost feels like they're competing with themselves, that they're holding themselves to a high standard, but not at the expense of what their friends are doing. I really do feel like Duke students show up for each other and cheer each other on, whether it's at each other's research poster presentations or showing up at the airport to welcome friends back from study abroad, or both my daughters are dancers, and my freshman daughter just danced in her spring showcase on Friday night. And I don't know, anyone who's grown up going to like ballet shows or whatever with their family to watch their children dance maybe expected kind of a polite and demure crowd in the audience, but this is Duke. And so whenever, someone stepped on stage that friends recognized, there was just all kinds of hooting and hollering and calling out names. And it just felt like, I don't know, I think often that Duke students cheer each other on, but on Friday night, I felt like, no, you are literally cheering each other on very loudly in this space. And so I think that's true in the classroom as well.
Yeah, I feel like if I would just chime into what Carrie said, I think that collaborative nature is something I feel and see and experience a lot of. Not that I was a Duke student, but me pretending a Duke student. I had this really cool opportunity, and I want my peers to have the same one. And so rather than kicking down the ladder to build a barrier, I'm trying to help more people up to my experience, whether it be a cool research opportunity, a fun internship, like whatever it is. I think I hear that spirit of collaboration pretty infused throughout the undergrad experience.
I feel like I hear that term community everywhere, right? There is a big Duke community, right? Within the student population, the graduate student population, the alumni population. I think the faculty and staff feel it too. I think a place like Duke brings together a group who wants to be supportive of each other. And the thing that I constantly hear in subgroups of those populations, because that happens, right? People find their people, the people they connect with, is that regardless of what that group is, what that community is that they're working with, they all want to see each other succeed. And I have been encouraged by that, and I find that incredibly helpful to think about the leaders of industry in the future fields they're going to be in. Because to be successful, these are change makers. They're going to be leaders. They have to work across interdisciplinary kind of teams. And our students, I think, get that exposure just within the fabric of what this environment is. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and maybe I'll kick some of the questions that have come in through the Q&A. We have been answering many of those in real time. Some of those we've answered on air, and then, of course, Bucky has answered a good number of those behind the scenes. So I'm just going to kind of ping pong some of what I see here to the group, and we will do the best that we can. Here's a good one. I think lots of parents are going to have this question, lots of families out there. It matters, right? Is there any unexpected cost beyond fees and tuition that you experienced or saw that came up?
I'm happy to start with that, and I'm just trying to think through it. I will say students spend far less money on books now than they did previously. And so with both of my girls, I feel like I said often, do you need money for books? Do you need, are you supposed to be buying books? Are you supposed to be buying software or course packets or anything? And they said, no, it's online. Or, professors make things available. So there were nominal fees each semester for a couple books or publications, but that was one area where I saved some money. And so that was surprising. There is a student activities fee built into what you pay for Duke each semester. And so again, I've mentioned my girls are dancers, and throughout the year I asked them, do you need money for your dance group? And they said, no, it's all covered. I think each family will have to decide for itself what kinds of things you do want to pay for as parents and what things you want your kids to pay for. And so another parent advised me before my kids started college just to have that conversation in advance, kind of what are the expectations? If you need a haircut, am I paying for that or are you paying for that? If you want to go to the mountains for fall break with friends, are you paying for that or am I paying for that? And so I would just throw that out there as something to think about, talking about with your student in advance. But yeah, I think Duke does a good job of giving you a financial breakdown and predicting what kinds of outside expenses you'll have. And for me, it's been pretty spot on. Yeah.
I would say my kids didn't spend a whole lot of money outside of, what we paid. There's so much happening on campus over the weekend that they didn't really go off campus or feel a need to go different places and spend money. So there was very little. And then there are different opportunities for students to earn pocket money, whether or not they have work study. There are other opportunities. There was very little extra. There are some courses that require an extra amount of courses. If they want to take private music lessons, for example, there's an extra charge for that. Now, I will say for students who are on financial aid, those kinds of extra academic related expenses are covered within financial aid. No student on financial aid is prohibited from taking full advantage of the curriculum because of financial reasons. So my son did take drum lessons, and so we paid a little bit extra for that. I don't remember what it was, but yeah.
I'm just going to make a quick plug for the fact that Dalton earlier put a link to the New Student Family Programs webinar series, and I think that's a really helpful piece. Actually, I'm wrong. It was the Duke Office of Strategic Enrollment Management and their YouTube page. And the first one that they posted was 10 days ago with our wonderful colleague, Miranda McCall. She's the director of financial aid, did an information session on that. Every one of our students is assigned a financial aid officer, regardless of whether or not they receive aid. It's a point person. It's very intentionally designed that way so that every student knows who they can reach out to if they have some things that come up along the way. Yeah.
Well,
Dalton,
if I
did you have
could,
anything to add on that?
The only thing I was going to mention was, as far as resources, like Penny talked a little bit about some of the outside lessons or whatever. And I think turning it back to academics specifically, there are plenty of free on-campus academic resources to help students out when they're supporting it. I think what people spend out of pocket is going to be very contextual based on who the student is. And so that's a good conversation for you to have with your students about, are you using the dining plan for all of your meals? Or is it you're going off campus to try a local restaurant once a week? Like whatever that might be, it's going to be very individualized. But yeah, so I think that was the only thing I was going to say. Penny, was there something else that you had? Sorry, I cut you off there.
Not on that, but there was a question about aerospace engineering and Pratt that I wanted to answer live because it was too much to type it all in. There is an aerospace engineering certificate that students can do. So it's mechanical engineering, and then you specialize in aerospace engineering. And then there are lots of research opportunities. The one thing that I wanted to broaden this a little bit to say, and the reason why my kids who were Pratt chose Duke as opposed to some other schools is that the engineering program at Duke, one, is very holistic as opposed to going to one of the more technical schools like Georgia Tech, Caltech, whatever, or even, for example, at NC State. I'm not trying to put down these programs, but it provides a more holistic engineering experience as well as being at a college where you get the full college experience. And so that was why they chose Duke over a lot of the other more strictly technical universities where they would be pigeonholed. Now, granted that you have to take all of these engineering courses, but the other thing is that you can be more integrated into the rest of the university than you might be at some other engineering programs where things are more compartmentalized. I don't know if that fully answered the question, but those are sort of the points I wanted to make about Duke's engineering as opposed to engineering programs at other universities.
Great. Thanks so much for that. Trying to find another good question here that's helpful. There's a question around selectivity here within clubs and organizations, specifically for those that are what I'm going to frame them as is like pre-professional. Dalton, you work with our QuadX related initiatives and you work closely with student involvement and leadership. Do you want to state anything about philosophically how we're working around student organizational selectivity?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I'll just to name it, there are some clubs and organizations you have to apply to get into, and they might not have spots for everybody. It's a reality. It is what it is. I think something that I spend a lot of time talking with students about is the why behind joining a club. I think that sometimes students feel like there is one path. If I want to get to my end goal, I have to do these 27 steps to get there. And if I run into an area where I don't get that next step, then I have to rethink my path. And I think we spend a lot of time pushing back on that narrative to say, what are your goals and how can we get there? And if it is by trying to apply for one of these clubs and then you don't get in, that's okay. Like, what's the next path? Like, what are your other options you can have there? I will say, to the point of selectivity as well, there are many clubs and organizations across campus that students are naturally a part of. A lot of those, Clay mentioned QuadX, but tied into the residential model we have here. So just by nature of living in your dorm, you are assigned a house council and a quad council. And I think a lot of students find connection and community in that regard. And then that also expands out into other clubs. I'm just going to pick one randomly, but like the chess club, right? Like you could go join the chess club and you could be an expert at chess and you could be a beginner at chess, but like that is a place for you to go and spend time with peers who have similar interests and connect that way. So I think for me, I would encourage students to think about the why behind what they want to join. And if it is because you have an interest in this particular area, great. And if it is, I'm using this as a stepping stone to get to my next step, then I think the question is like, what else could you do if you aren't able to get into this one particular club that you're interested in? I will say in my time here, I think we've really I think students have really responded well to that and are thinking intentionally about what types of spaces that you want to create and whether or not something should just be arbitrarily hard to get into just for the sake of it being hard to get into. And Clay mentioned student involvement and leadership. That's one of the offices on campus that manages a lot of the student orgs. And so those are questions and conversations we have with exec board members year after year. What do you want this organization to look like, and how can we push it to be better this year than we were last year and keep growing that way?
I really appreciate that, Dalton. I will say that we flipped kind of the script when it comes to our clubs and organizations. And now, if you want to apply to create a new club or organization and you want it to be selective, you actually have to convince individuals of why that would be the case. All right. So if you're, I'm gonna pick on something that is obvious in nature, but it'll get the point across. If it's a barbershop quartet, there is a limit to the number of people who are in that barbershop quartet. But the reality is we say the hard thing is done, right? You got into Duke, a place that has an admit rate of less than 4%. After that, we focus on developing communities of belonging, engagement, and well-being. Just I've seen multiple questions that came in that were about well-being. I think we answered many of those directly, and Bucky did a nice job with that. Is there anything that the panelists would like to share about well-being? And I'm going to share one thing just to tee it up. At Duke, we have an interconnected web of resources, staff, and community members who are there working to make sure that your student has what they need and are supported. But one of the big differences between high school and college, and I tell all parents this, is in high school, people were automatically going out to your student, right? Many times they have to check in, right? And have to do some proactive outreach. Even though, while I say that, we have plenty of proactive measures to make sure your students just not sitting in their residence hall room. But I do want to say that the self-advocacy piece does matter when it comes to college, regardless of where they go. But they're going to come to Duke because this is a wonderful place, right? All right, who wants to jump in on that one? Well-being resources and your thoughts about those.
I would say, Duke's got all these programs, some of which we've mentioned, the Wellness Center and the Do Well programs and incredible gyms where students, if they want to blow off steam exercising or taking any number of classes through the gym, those are all options during the day. Gyms are open late. But one thing I appreciate about Duke is that there are also really incredible and personal after hours resources. So if your student comes to Duke and finds him or herself in crisis in the middle of the night, then there are Duke staff on call. I'm blanking on the program. Is it called Duke Reach? Or yeah. So your student will have an RA, a resident advisor in his or her dorm, as well as for first year students, a faculty member in residence, someone who lives in an apartment in the residence hall. And so not only are there these great places to take care of yourself, to practice self-care during the day, but also, if you're in crisis. And I really just appreciate as a parent that that's there if my student or any student needs it. There's also a way for students to report concern about their friends, either directly or anonymously, if they are concerned about a friend and just want an adult to check on them. So I like that as well.
I was going to mention Duke Reach as well. There are a lot of times when either on the Facebook page or through a private message, a parent will reach out to me because they're concerned about their student. And, after we talk a little bit about what kind of concern is it, I'll often recommend a Duke Reach report. There is also a 24/7 counseling line so that a student at Duke could reach out virtually to a counselor 24/7, and that's right on the website of the Counseling and Psychological Services, their website. So that's something if someone is in crisis. And I think there's even some student training now, Clay, where a student can reach out to another student through a hotline when they're in crisis.
The safety and support of your students is, that's key. That's number one. Your students can't learn and engage if they're not in a safe place holistically. And so that's one of the reasons we invest so deeply in the overall well-being resources for your students. So it's right there at the forefront of the decisions we make and all the supports that we put into place. We have 2 minutes left, and we still have questions that are coming in We are grateful for y'all being here and spending some of your evening with us. Hopefully, many of you are going to be joining us Thursday, Friday, or Monday coming up. And if you do, if you see us around, please come up and say hello. I'm moderating some of the parent panels on Thursday and Monday. Sorry if you're going to be there on Friday, but someone with my same last name, Ben Adams, no relation, is going to be there. He's wonderful. And you can certainly grab us before or after those panel discussions, and we can get into some of your specific questions about your student if that's helpful. So I'm going to close out with one final question for the panelists and say thank you to each and every one of the family members that came in to be with us. So what's one piece of advice you would give to the families as their student prepares to come to Duke?
I'll start in this advice that I give to parents all the time, and it's somewhat hard for parents to hear. And that is, let your student take the lead in navigating their journey. People have said when your student is in high school, you're managing them. When they're in college, you're a consultant, you're an advisor to them, but you're not managing their experience. And the other thing I would say is part of that, as tough as that is, let them do it now while they have all of the safety nets that Duke has for them, as opposed to when they go out into the real world, if you will, and those safety nets aren't there. Let them figure it out now. Let them fail, let them stumble, let them learn how to be resilient. And everybody is here to support them. And as I said, there are safety nets. They won't fall through the cracks. And if you have questions still, please post them on our Facebook page. I'm happy to answer them there, or send me private messages. I'm happy to respond there.
I agree wholeheartedly with Penny. That is the number one bit of advice that I would have given myself. Let your student take the lead on this. So if I have to come up with something different, I would say that in this time, like, your student will make a decision about college, and of course we hope they choose Duke, but then I would say just enjoy this time senior year. Focus on your student and their graduation and fun summer plans. People often wonder, what do I need to do to prepare to come to Duke? What should I read? What should I be studying? What do I need to bone up on before I'm in the Duke classroom? And I think Duke wants students to come to campus like recharged and refreshed and curious and excited to learn. So lean into your friends and your kids and their graduation and your family vacations, and let your students sleep in and veg out at the pool and just recharge this summer. And they've done everything they need to do to be ready for Duke. Yeah, that's it.
Wow, Carrie, you also stole a lot of what I was going to say. So I think we're just kind of cycling through this way. But that was going to be my piece of advice too, right? Like, your students have worked so hard to get to this point where they are right now. And obviously they have many great things in store for them, whether it be Duke or somewhere else. But I think just being able to soak in the moment and be present is really important. You've done what you needed to do to get into a school that's going to meet your hopes and dreams. And so now's a chance to sort of enjoy, reflect, think about what's coming next. And this is, it's 4 years. It's an important 4 years. And so making sure that you're making the best decision for you and your family is really important. And who am I to say what that decision is? I don't know. But obviously I do hope that you choose Duke. And I think it's a great place that your student will enjoy being here at. So thank you all for being here tonight. Really appreciate it.
Couldn't have said it any better. Thank you to the panelists, and thanks for y'all being here. Take care, and hopefully we'll see you in the fall or at Blue Devil Days a little bit later this week.